Hi, John Cannon here with Liberation Tours.
Elizabeth Cannon, Head of Photography and Social Media.
Well, it's pandemic year, and so unfortunately we are not able to travel with you over to the battlefields of Europe to see the monuments, the battlefields, and the cemeteries, and the great historic places. So what we thought we would do is take some inspiration from David and Julie Thompson, who operate number 56 Bed and Breakfast over on the Somme in France, and we'll put a link to their wonderful B&B in the notes below. And hello to David and Julie. They've been taking short trips from their B&B to some of the small cemeteries around the Somme battlefields and talking about some of the soldiers that are laid to rest there. And so we thought we might do something similar and get in the car and take perhaps a couple of hours drive from our home in Midland, Ontario, to visit some notable cemeteries and monuments as well.
So the first place we thought we'd visit is here, which is Greenwood Cemetery in Owen Sound, Ontario, just along the south shores of Georgian Bay. And here we have not one or two, but three recipients of the Victoria Cross. And they are among many other soldiers, but we thought we'd introduce you to just the three of them today. Shall we go meet them?
Let's do it. All right, we've walked across the cemetery to find our first soldier. But on the way, we've come across many soldiers who served and survived the war and are buried here in Greenwood. There's this big monument erected behind us by the Owen Sound Lodge, which commemorates a number of soldiers from the Great War. And then there's a cluster of soldiers buried here, those who served in the Great War and came home and eventually lived out their lives here in Owen Sound, along with some additional markers that it looks like the Legion has erected to commemorate soldiers who died in the Second World War. Those are these markers here, rather, they're reminiscent of the Commonwealth War Graves headstones that you would see when we're in the cemeteries overseas. And so we're going to make our way just over here to visit with our first soldier. His name is Thomas William Holmes. He was a sergeant. As you can see, the letters VC, Victoria Cross, very special indeed. Holmes, like many soldiers, lied about his age when he signed up. He enlisted at the age of 17. And he was with originally the 147th Battalion here in Grey County, but like many of the battalions, once they got overseas, they were broken up and the soldiers split up and sent to other battalions to act as reinforcements to bolster their numbers after losses from earlier battles. So he ended up with the 4th Canadian Mounted Rifles, hence the 4CMR you see on the headstone. He was actually injured and wounded at the Battle of Vimy Ridge, but that's not where he earned his VC. That would come in October of 1917, later the same year. And for those who have traveled with us in the past, you'll recognize October of 1917 as the Battle of Passchendaele. And his citation reads, and I quote, "When the right flank of the Canadian attack was held up by heavy machine gun fire from a pillbox strongpoint, and heavy casualties were producing a critical situation, Private Holmes, on his own initiative and single-handedly, ran forward and threw 2 bombs, killing and wounding the crews of the 2 machine guns. He then further fetched another bomb and threw this into the entrance of the pillbox, causing another 19 soldiers to surrender. And for that great act of heroism, he was awarded the Victoria Cross." So that's the citation for Thomas William Holmes, buried here in Owen Sound. All right, we've moved to another section of the cemetery. It's a very large cemetery. We've driven parts of it, we've walked parts of it, we've come across many soldiers from the First and Second War who served and came home and are resting here. We'd love to talk about them all, but today we're going to focus on our 3 Victoria Cross winners. And thank goodness these flagpoles, these mini flagpoles have been put up. I'm not sure who, but I'm going to give credit to the Royal Canadian Legion. They're probably the people who have done this. And thank goodness it made it easier to find our three boys were searching for today. And this is the final resting place of David Vivian Curry, who earned the Victoria Cross in the Second World War. Those who were with us on our D-Day tour will remember in June of 2019 that we visited the spot where Curry earned his VC. It was in the village of Saint-Lambert-sur-Dives in the battle for the Falaise Pocket. The German army was escaping, and it was going to be critical to cut off their escape routes. Curry, with a number of infantry and tanks, penetrated deep into the village and then set up a defensive position, a very tenuous defensive position, and fought off one German counterattack after another for the next day and a half, and succeeded ultimately in cutting off that escape route. And for that, he was awarded the Victoria Cross. You will see in the picture here, this is the image that was taken, and that's Curry standing on the left, chatting with his pistol in his right hand. That was taken just at the moments when some of those German soldiers were surrendering to Curry and his men. And here is a not so serious attempt at myself, Phil Craig, my colleague Mark Prue, and some others to reenact that photograph when we were on site with our wonderful travelers in June of 2019, right on the spot. Curry is one of these people that was an accomplished man. He went on to serve as the Sergeant of Arms in the House of Commons for 18 years and rose to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. And so we're glad to visit David Curry's final resting place here today. All right, we've taken a stroll across to the other side of the cemetery, and now we're going to meet with our third and final soldier, our third Victoria Cross winner. And that's William Avery Bishop, or as most of Canadians would know him, Billy Bishop. Billy Bishop was the #1 flying ace for Canada in the Great War, but not just for Canada, but for all of the British forces. He's credited with 72 victories in the air during the First World War. He particularly is credited with an attack that he undertook himself on an aerodrome in June of 1917, which ultimately earned him a Victoria Cross. But being an ace in the First World War wasn't enough for Bishop, because he would go on to become Air Marshal of the Royal Canadian Air Force, which you'll see on the headstone over to the right, and was instrumental in helping to develop the British Commonwealth Air Training Program, which saw well over 150,000 airmen come to Canada from all around the Commonwealth to be trained as pilots for the Second World War. One of the great stories, one of the great contributions by Canada to the Second World War effort. And you can see his various awards mentioned on his headstone here. VC for Victoria Cross. Here he was invested in the Order of the Bath, DSO, Distinguished Service Order, and BAR. He earned the DSO twice, also the Military Cross and the Distinguished Flying Cross. A very accomplished man during the war, First World War and Second World War, and after. One of the great Canadians. And our third Victoria Cross winner, a really unique situation here at Greenwood Cemetery in Owen Sound. And so we hope that you've enjoyed that little visit today, and we'll probably undertake to bring you to a few more places, again, that are just within the scope of a couple of hours of where we live in central and southern Ontario. Not always Victoria Cross winners, perhaps, but some soldiers with some interesting stories along the way. And we'll hope to see you on the next go.